There is loads of new Go Faster cycling tech at the Ironman World Champs in Kona, and our mates over at GCN have been there on the ground spotting it, so we're going to bring it to you in this vid. And there's a lot of cutting edge stuff that could benefit all cyclists and not just triathletes. Now we're going to begin with some wheels, and well, one wheel in particular, the Head Jet 180, which has set the internet ablaze because it's so deep, 180 millimeters. It's specifically a rear wheel. And it's kind of a strange product, and it's come about because disc wheels are currently banned at Ironman Kona. And so riders have traditionally used wheels that are 80 to 90 millimeters deep, as that was the deepest non-disc wheel that you could get. However, Head's come along with this super deep wheel, which technically isn't a disc wheel, but is super deep and can minimize drag on the Ironman Kona course. It's also super wide. Now this is interesting because we've seen the trend for wider tires, but now wheels are really following suit. So this wheel has a maximum width of 32 millimeters, which is wider than a lot of the tires that would be fitted to it. But they're not the only ones. Parkour had got some new wheels on display at Kona too, and their wheel concept is actually called Think Wider. The front one has a 32 millimeter wide rim, similar to the Head, but the rear one has a 30.5 millimeter wide rim, so slightly narrower on the rear. And that's because they've been doing some in-depth analysis with a fancy bit of tech called an ultrasound anemometer, which they fit to the rear stay of the bike. And through this analysis, they've come to the conclusion that the yaw angles that a rider and a bike encounters are greater at the front of the bike than they are at the rear. And so they've decided that their design to wheels should incorporate that, and therefore they've got different rim profiles, front and rear. Also slightly deeper on the rear, slightly shallower on the front, but a completely different rim shape too. They also believe from doing these studies that they can show that disc wheels should be allowed at Kona, which would render that Head Jet 180 completely redundant if they do manage to put their case forward successfully. And one of the ways they're doing that is by combining that ultrasound anemometer that they fit to the rear of the bike with this cool little sensor that fits onto the handlebars at the front. It contains an accelerometer. Now this isn't a sensor that's designed to be sold mass market. It's something that they're simply using to help develop and improve the wheels that they make. And what it essentially does is it measures how twitchy your handlebars are. So if you've got a really unstable bike because of crosswinds or a really unstable wheel, your bike is twitchy at the front, and this little gadget can measure that. Of course, the most important thing aerodynamically for any cyclist is your body, not the bike. It's the biggest source of resistance to the wind. And there's some really cool clothing tech on display at Kona. So this is the Trimtex Insane Suit. Great name. Now, it actually features some very cool cooling tech, which is something that's becoming increasingly important. We saw this at the Tour de France this year, riders continually pouring cold, icy bottles down themselves and wearing ice vests. And, you know, the importance of cooling is something that we're starting to realize is far more important than we thought and has a big impact on performance. Anything that you can do to keep yourself cool, not just before a race, but during a race, is gonna have a marked improvement on your performance. And according to Trimtex, this suit has 130% better cooling efficiency than a sort of standard Lycra suit, which is absolutely huge and could be very significant. You'll also notice that there's these little sort of, well, silicone features on the arms and shoulders. These are known as turbulators. And this is interesting because this is the kind of tech that we saw on the Endura encapsulator suit, and also Castelli had a skin suit in 2018 that had this kind of tech on. This was promptly banned by the UCI. However, they have no jurisdiction here in triathlon land, and so triathletes are wearing suits that have these sort of surface features on them. Trimtex is not the only brand that has this sort of technology. You'll also see it on the Hoob suits. So this is the Hoob Aero bridge suit, the kind of suit worn by Alistair Brownlee. Now, again, what's cool about these triathlon suits is they give us an idea of what cycling clothing and skin suits would look like if the UCI hadn't banned all the cool stuff. And so instead, what we have now is this ridiculous situation where Cyclists no longer wear suits that have features built into them. They simply wear a thin layer suit with an undervest or a base layer underneath that contains these aero features, which then stick through the suit. Ridiculous. Anyhow, these suits have it built in. And so what you can see on the Aero Bridge suit from Hoob is that it's got these sort of veins that come down on the arm section, much like the turbulators on the Trimtex suit. The idea behind these is that they change the airflow over your arms as it hits it. So you go from a laminar flow. This laminar flow can detach and then create a weight and drag behind your arms. Your arms aren't very aerodynamic. They're basically cylinders. But by having these features on the fabric, what it's able to do is trip the airflow from laminar to turbulent flow. It stays attached for longer and therefore reduces the weight behind your arm and reduces your drag. Something else really cool is that Alistair Brownlee's suit is tuned for a specific speed, around 41 kilometers an hour, as that's what you would do an Ironman bike split at. Whereas Anna Haug, who is also sponsored by Hoob, uses a completely different suit with this kind of like honeycomb fabric on it. It doesn't have that veined fabric on that's on Brownlee's suit. And the reason for that is because her suit is tuned for a slightly lower speed that she would ride her split at. So it shows that how different clothing and different skin suits can be very dependent on their performance at very specific speeds. And again, cooling is an integral part of the design of these Hoob suits. So they actually feature a thermal conducting polymer woven into the fabric. And according to Hoob, that's able to help reduce your body temperature by 0.3 of a degree Celsius during a race or an event like Kona. Now that doesn't sound like much, but when put into the context of changing your body temperature, just a couple of degrees either side of what's normal is the difference between being okay or either being hypo or in hyperthermia. I was also quite excited to see that Triathletes use a special version of my favourite Castelli BTW suit. The balls to the wall suit. Now, this suit has a special textured surface on the lycra, a bit like the Trimtex and the Hoob suit to help reduce drag over the cylinders on your legs and stuff. But it also is very, very light. And one of the ways in which they can keep the weight of it down is by having incredibly thin fabric, but also removing things that we needed in the past, like silicone leg grippers. And the way they're able to remove the silicone grippers is by simply changing the weave of the fabric where the leg gripper ordinarily would be, so that lycra can sort of come to the surface in that location. And then that is able to work and act like a leg gripper, but just much more simple. It's absolutely genius. Now, I love aero bars and custom cockpits. So many TT bikes now from the top pros have these. And this is actually the Scott Plasma TT bike of Magnus Dittler, one of the strongest cyclists in the professional Ironman scene. Now, this outrageous cockpit on the front of his bike was developed with the help of Simon Smart from Drag20 at the Silverstone Sports Engineering Wind Tunnel. And you can see that instead of having two extensions, it's like a big single mono extension with then two hand grips for his shifters at the end. So it's just one big extension which then sort of shrouds and helps clean the airflow up over both of your arms. And the interesting thing about this is, well, I think this could actually be UCI legal because although it is a fairing, it is structural. And so, well, it might be a loophole, it might actually be allowed. So I'm not entirely sure on that. They all always have the right to sort of ban willy-nilly whatever they don't like the look of. But as the rules stand, I think that could actually be legit. You may also have spotted that he's got a very, very bling custom painted ceramic speed Aero OSPW on his bike as well. Very nice. It's not just us cyclists that love cool custom paint jobs. Triathletes like them as well. And the guys at GCN, they spotted Lucy Charles's custom cube Arium C8. Check this out. Oh, a really nice sort of metallic, sort of almost pink paint job going on, but it does look very nice. It's got a matching ceramic speed OSPW on the back. I mean, of course it does. And you'll see that this bike actually has disc brakes now. So the C8 has been around for quite a while, but previously it was only available in a rim brake version. So yeah, disc brakes, they're all over Kona. It's also rumoured that the bike has some increased internal hydration capacity within the frame. So this is something that we've seen a lot with triathlon-specific bikes over the years. Instead of having bottles on the outside, which aren't particularly aerodynamic, you actually have bladders inside the big down tube areas, and then tubes that come out, and when you're thirsty, you can take a sip. But let us know what you think about that, and if that's something that you think we should see more on road bikes, because, as I say, you know, water bowls, not very aerodynamic. You're just adding cylinders. Cylinders are like the worst shape. And finally, I want to show you a cool bit of wearable tech. So this is called the Flow Patch, and it's a sensor piece of wearable tech that you can just attach onto your arm. Now this is just a prototype at the moment, but it's a biosensor that's designed to measure your sodium levels, your sweat rates, your fluid loss, your sort of sodium, your sweat concentration, which could all be really, really useful information, especially for analysing performance throughout a race and seeing if you become dehydrated and what the effects of dehydration could be. We know that Team Ineos, on the road cycling side of things, have been looking at sweat rates and the impacts of it, particularly in the hour record, which Filippo Ganna, at the time of making this video, is about to embark on. Now, at the moment, with it being a prototype, the data can only be looked at after your ride or your race or your event retrospectively. But they said because the data is collected in real time using this sensor, there's no reason why they couldn't develop a way of showing it in real time live on your head unit, which could be really cool because, you know, if you're doing a massive Gran Fondo or massive cycling event, it could give you a warning that you're starting to become dehydrated and you need to really drink more before it gets too late and you, I don't know, really bonk, or I'm not really sure what happens when you really dehydrate. Don't know what the word for that is. Anyway, it turned into a raisin. Anyway, so there you have it, some proper cool tech on display at Kona. Big thanks to GCN for going over there and filming some stuff for us. And let us know in the comments what your favourite thing is that you've seen in this video and what you're most excited about seeing in road cycling. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.